Ooh, there we go. Ooh, that's new. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining the RM Tech Rocky Mountain Tribal Epidemiology Center's monthly community health webinar series here on Zoom. The Community Health Webinar Series is a free monthly public webinar series on Zoom, where Rocky Mountain Tribal Epidemiology Center, or RM Tech, hosts speakers on public health topics impacting tribal communities in Wyoming, Montana. Today's facilitators, I want to introduce myself. My name is Hillary Prestigan. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm calling you in on the occupied lands of the Potawatomi people here along the coastline of Lake Michigan in Holland, Michigan. That's my contact information. I am the Tribal Public Health Training Coordinator at RM Tech through CDCF. During this live webinar series, I will be collecting questions. Oh, sorry, my bad. On top of it, I have my partner in crime, Jennifer Hudson-Schaff, viewed right here, lovely photo. She's a training coordinator for RM Tech and RMTLC. We are the dynamic virtual duo for any sort of professional development and continuing education interests and opportunities. Please feel free to take a screenshot or write down our contact info if you want to reach out to us to learn a little bit more about what we can offer and what we do. We will also share our contact info in the chat box as well. So a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. Today's session will be recorded, or as you've noticed, you've been asked if it's okay to be recorded. We do this because we want to be able to use these webinars recordings for future training purposes. Your participation on or off camera, audio, or text in the chat box indicates your consent to be recorded. When asking questions, during the beginning of the webinar, we do have the presentation. Afterwards, we have what we call a Q&A or question and answer, but please keep your phone on mute or your computer on mute when you're not speaking. Please use the hand icon to ask questions, or you can use the chat box. If you don't want to say something verbally, you can text it and I can collect that information and share it during the Q&A with Rita. Please leave all questions for the Q&A portion of the presentation at the very end during that moment. As I just said, look at me being redundant, my apologies. So, for use of cameras, that is optional. Sharing resources, I am planning on to share the resources that Rita has gathered for this presentation on this topic in the chat box, as well as sending it out in an email through Zoom with the resources shared as well. At the very end, I will be sharing a link to the evaluation for today's training, because we're always here, we are here to improve and to serve our tribal communities better. So your input is always super important to us. So I will be sharing that as well as in the Zoom email with those resources that you will get afterwards. And more importantly, on top of it all, the Community Health Webinar Series is a safe space for the public to come and ask questions about public health topics that are impacting them and their community. So please be respectful and kind. We are all here to learn. So as we like to start all of our training and webinars here at RM Tech, we would like to start with a opening prayer.
Please join me in joining us in a good way with our smudging prayer. Creator, bless me this day to have good thoughts, to see good in a person, to hear good things from a person, to talk good to a person so that I can walk with others in a good way. Thank you, Creator. Haho.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer. So for today's presenter, I am thrilled to introduce you to Rita Courtwright. Rita Courtwright is a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, the citizen of the Fort Moaf tribes of Indians. and she works as a tribal communications specialist for the CDC Foundation in conjunction with the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board. Yay, another health board. She has over 20 years experience in the field of tribal communications. In addition to her tribal communications role, Rita is currently teaching public relations and speech courses at the College of the Muskogee Nation in Oklahoma, Oklahoma. And I am sorry if I mispronounced that, Rita. I was on a roll up until that one. Rita holds a master's in arts degree in mass communications and Native American studies from the Northeastern State University of Tahlequah, Oklahoma. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you to Rita Courtright, our speaker today.
Hello, thank you, Hillary. I appreciate that introduction. I am a citizen of the Fort Mojave tribe of Indians out of Needles, California, down in the Colorado River Basin. And you did great on Okmulgee. That was great. Today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about, and I hope that Hillary, yeah, will you be the one sharing my screens? Oh, okay, great.
Jennifer will be able to share the screen.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how to know what to believe when it comes to researching health topics on the internet. And with that, hopefully, Jennifer, if you go ahead and start for us my slideshow.
Can you all see the slideshow?
There it goes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
So how do you know what to believe? Well, first off, like Hillary said, I do not attest to be the be all end all on knowing what to believe in regards to healthcare issues on the internet. I do also, as part of my teaching, I also try to do an interview, proper interview techniques for college students. And I talk about things that you should look for and should not look for when looking for positions. And also when doing a lot of interviews now that we're all virtual, as I saw, there was a lot of folks from all over the United States here today, that it's good to know, to have a little bit of better understanding, I should say, of what is the best way to do research, I guess, out on the internet. So we'll start with the next slide, Jennifer. So this is basically, how do you know what to believe? So what's true and what's not? Where do you even begin? The internet is so vast and it's so easy to fall down like the rabbit hole of information. What's true, what's not. And this is a good way. It's a funny way. So I hope you all enjoy the humor. You begin with a simple test that it's called the crap test. And it's not the crap you think either. It's it's better. It helps you learn. So if you go to the next slide for me, Jennifer.
This is you. You have a history report due on Italy. First, you'll need to find a reliable source, but you'll also run into an unreliable source. Or more likely, on the internet, lots of them. So the question is, how do you tell the difference between the two? I present you with the crap test. Before you go asking questions, let me clarify, it's not bathroom humor. CRAP is an acronym that helps you identify a reliable source. The C stands for currency, the R for reliability, the first A for authority of the author, the second for authority of the organization, and the P for purpose or point of view. Let's start with currency. Currency means it's current for the topic. You need to ask yourself, does it tell you when it was written? Second, try to figure out if the links on the page still work. An important note is that an article about cell phones from 1960 wouldn't be current, but the Civil War would be current. Next up is reliability. With this, you should ask, where did the author get their information? Do they provide you with links or citations, typically at the bottom? Or can the information be verified by checking on other sites? Next is the authority of the author. You should be asking, why do I trust the author? Does the author list their name? If they're proud of their work, they should. If you Google them, can you find what makes them an expert? Do they have a degree or education in the field? The second A stands for authority of the organization. Ask, can I trust the organization? If you look them up, can you figure out, are they a distinguished organization? Who published it? Also, what is the domain? The domain is the little code after the URL, and they all mean something. .com and .net typically are considered less reliable than .gov, .edu, and .org. P stands for purpose or point of view. In this, you're trying to figure out if the author addresses multiple perspectives. Ask, is their tone objective? Does it sound like fact, or are they ranting? Also, you should ask if the writing is biased. Does it clearly favor one perspective? If it was trying to sell you a shirt and said it was the softest shirt in the world, it would not be objective because there are no facts, and it is clearly biased because it's trying to sell you something. Let's review. The C stands for currency, the R for reliability, the A for authority of the author, the second for authority of the organization, and the P for purpose or point of view. It's important to note that while a reliable source may not pass all of these tests, if it's a good source, it should pass most of them.
You get the general idea. It's a good acronym to remember to help you kind of, when you start researching websites in regards to your topic or healthcare. And we'll go into the next slide, Jennifer. So what do? You establish a timeline. Okay, you look at what is it that I need to know about? When is it that I need to know this information by? And then again, how do I know where to begin looking, or how do I know who to trust? And the CRAP test kind of told you about that. You can Google the sources. You need to make sure that that they're a credible source, that MD, someone who's not a paid advertisement. Next slide. The internet makes finding health information really easy and fast. However, as you all already know, the internet also allows for rapid and widespread distribution of false and misleading information. So it's really important to discuss any information that you find on the internet with your healthcare provider or your local Department of Health or your health board first and foremost, before you just go off believing everything that you read on the internet. So you should ask these questions. Who runs the website that you are reading about? That's one of the first things. Who? Online resources such as web and social media sites, again, make it easy for you to learn who runs those. They should make it easy, I should say, for you to learn who runs the sites and the information. They should have like their title up at the front. The website should also have, if it's an article on the website, it should list an author at the top of the page. If not, it should list the author at the bottom of the page. It's either at the very top or at the very bottom. And then at that point, you could do a little bit more research into whether or not that particular author is a credible source. Then you look at what is the site's purpose? Look for, again, something called, and I'm sure you all have seen it before, the About This Site tagline that you see on many web pages. This link, the About This Site, should clearly explain the purpose of the site and to also help you establish your form of trustworthiness for that particular website. Interaction. Just remember that web and social media sites should always offer a way for users to contact the owners with any problems, feedback, or any questions. There should always be, do you have any questions? Frequently asked questions. You might see those on the website. Contact us now. Those should usually, you can find those at the bottom of the page. Underneath the information in regards to the site, you should be able to find a contact us now or frequently asked questions section that you can click on to find out more information. And then the last one is, protection. The Federal Trade Commission, it enforces consumer protection laws, and it also helps regulate advertising. Medical websites undergo extensive scientific review by recognized experts before they are ever published as well. They're all supposed to go underneath an extensive review by medical authors. Always make sure if you're still unsure of whether or not the site is legitimate, You can read their terms of usage if you're worried about any kind of interaction that they might have with other web pages. And also know that the FTC, excuse me, also investigates complaints and false or misleading health claims that are posted on the internet. So you can always reach out to the FTC, sorry, it's a very big thing if you are unsure of the website. Next slide, Jennifer. Ask yourself, in regards to the CRAP test, the first acronym is currency. Ask yourself the following questions. If you click there again for me. Is there an author? Who are they, again, and what are their credentials? And could they be biased? You want to avoid anyone who is a biased source, and that's somebody who says this is the only way when there's more than one way that's actually available. You should never be put into a position on the internet where they're telling you this is the only choice you have when there's more than one choice that's available to you. Then does the item or the website include references? Again, credible references that you can reach out to, do a little bit further investigating into to find out whether or not that information is real. Just know that topics are rapidly, excuse me, I should say are rapidly, in rapidly changing areas like medicine often demand very current information. Is current on the top of the information, you can look for the day, the month, the year of the publication. And again, that's going to be either at the top of the page, by the article, if there's an article on the page, or at the very bottom. Be aware of any publications or websites that do not show an author, and always look for a citation or a reference list. Just again, double check. It's good to double check everything that you read on the internet, especially in regards to healthcare. Next slide, Jennifer. Thank you. This is just a chart that I found that I thought was kind of interesting. It's from a website that created a media bias chart, and I thought it was kind of interesting to show how the media seems to be biased either far left or far right, and for those who kind of stay in the middle in regards to knowing whether or not information is current. You can kind of see in the middle is NPR. That's one of the sites that I recommend that I look at a lot is NPR. I try to stay away from things like Fox News or things on the far left, because I want as unbiased of an opinion as possible. And they talk about a little bit, I want to talk a little bit, and I'm going to ask Hillary to kind of help me with a little bit of this next thing that I added, this next slide that I added in regards to a campaign that was ran in South Dakota not too long ago. And before we start this, this campaign came out, and it was, it didn't go how the state of South Dakota had hoped, but this is the Washington Post view on it. So I would like to kind of show you the video. It's just kind of funny, and then have Hillary kind of add a little bit because she was in South Dakota at the time that this campaign was released. If you'd push play for me.
I'm on meth.
I'm on meth.
I'm on it too. So am I.
That's the end of the video there. And I show this video because it's really interesting. I also use this video, clip it in my public relations course, because, if you're searching for ways to help to work towards the prevention of meth use, you would never think about saying I'm on meth. And yet South Dakota thought that this would be a really good campaign. So Hillary, maybe you could speak a little bit more about this if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So I lived in South Dakota for the past few years up until July when I moved back home to Michigan. So I was there when this rolled out. So as you saw, there were a ton of videos, a ton of ads and billboards all over the state with literally it having like the outline of the South Dakota saying hashtag meth, we're on it. I mean, the positive from that, it did spark the conversation about methamphetamine use and the issues of that substance being used out in South Dakota, because it is an issue, and it is an issue within tribal communities as well, but as well as rural white communities in that state. So, you know, it did spark it, but it was just not, it was more as a community and as a state, we were more embarrassed by this, that everybody was like, oh, meth, you're on it. Yeah, Amy, well put. It was tone deaf. But that's not probably the first time South Dakota has been a little tone deaf, but at least, you know, at least a few of my Indigenous art friends made some money off of kind of mocking that. So maybe another plus is like, you know, it really sparked the conversation, but it got creatives, both Indigenous and non-Native, you know, trying to redirect this conversation. But it was hard to drive by those billboards, not gonna lie, because I was like,
absolutely.
yeah,
You know, and I just wanted to kind of share that with you because it's so easy to be looking for something and then come up on something that is totally not where you were aiming to get to. And like Hillary said, you know, it was a good campaign. I mean, it drew a lot of nationwide attention, but unfortunately, it didn't get the message across completely is what they were trying to do, but it did get people talking. So kind of like a double-edged sword there. It did help them and then it didn't.
well, and also too, some people brought up, Rita, that, you know, it was like over $1 million, I believe Washington Post shared. And a lot of, you know, tribal communities are like, why couldn't we just use the money towards substance use? like prevention or something, instead of these billboards and these misleading tone deaf advertisements. So
absolutely. That's right. Well, thank you, Hillary, for your input there. Jennifer, we can go on to the next slide. So with the CRAP test, the CRAP acronym, you have currency and then you have reliability. So we look at reliability of the author. Look at the individual or organization running the website. Are they reputable? Are they an established voice on the subject? If they're an MD, what is their background in? Are they a specialized doctor? What makes them credible and trustworthy? Keeping current. Make sure that the news articles and topics are updated regularly. There's a lot of sites, health sites, the American Health Association, the Center for Disease Control, the American Health Association, the American Nursing Association, National Indian Health Board. Those sites are updated on a regular basis, and they try to at least keep their information as current as possible. And that's something you desperately need when you're dealing with researching of healthcare in your own community, especially if you look at like COVID protection, COVID vaccines, COVID, new variants of COVID. You know, how do you know what to believe and what not to believe? What's the most current information? So you can go to these established sites and find stories that should be updated on at least, I'd say, once a week, if not even more so than that. Beyond the headlines, make sure that you read the article and the headline and make sure it's not just looking for clicks. Again, we go back to discussing meth. We're on it. That was a good campaign. They thought it was going to be a really good campaign, but unfortunately it backfired on them because it upset South Dakotans and I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't know if that was the right word, but it upset the citizens of South Dakota because it made them seem like that they were all on meth, which they were not. They were just trying to say that they were tackling the issue that they were facing. Solid science. Make sure you have reliable websites that are transparent about their sources rather than relying on opinion pieces or secondhand news. On your audience, is it a reputable professional such as MDs are sharing their information from the site? That will offer added confidence. If it doesn't sound right, always ask questions. Look for, again, answers. Do your own research as you're going through there. And then always trust looking back to your general healthcare provider. In the end, they're going to know the most current and updated information in regards to your healthcare. Next slide, please, Jennifer. These are just some sites that I found that are really good, reliable sources: the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the National Indian Health Board, and then my own site that I'm working with, the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board. We always try to keep our social media up to date. We do have new posts at least every day with new information on whatever health campaign we're working on at the time, or whatever health awareness day or awareness week it may be. So again, that's updated every day. Next slide, Jennifer. What website should I probably never trust? This one may be a surprise to you, but WebMD, and the other one, as I'm sure most are aware of, is Wikipedia. Those are two sites that you should not. Wikipedia, I talk about Wikipedia and the fact that Wikipedia has reliable links within their text, but it's hard to find those reliable links. And WebMD, again, WebMD might not have the most accurate information in regards to symptoms or healthcare related to you. Again, that you're going to get the most up-to-date information from your general healthcare provider. Next slide, Jennifer. So WebMD, why not? Look for the credentials of the author to make sure that the information is written again by a health professional. Ask yourself, who wrote this information? Who sponsors this website? Is it clear? Can you reach the sponsor? Can you reach the creator? Is there a phone number to call them? Is there an email address to email them? Try going to more reputable websites such as federal, state, or non-governmental health organizations like the CDC, NIH, or the FDA. Those are examples that are good to rely on, better than WebMD. Be cautious of commercial health websites with addresses that end in .com. Try seeking out websites that end in .gov, .edu, or even .org. Those seem to be more credible than those that end in .com, because anyone can have a .com website. And that's what WebMD is. And then always cross-reference your health information before jumping to conclusions. Again, never ever self-diagnose yourself. WebMD is the world's worst about leading you down that rabbit hole. Always consult your doctor or physician before making any kind of medical decisions or changes to your health behavior. Don't trust something that you read on WebMD. Next slide, Jennifer. Wikipedia, why not? Well, it's known, it has had known hoaxes before that have included factual errors, and any person can create or edit pages to drive traffic to their own websites. I could go on there and say that I was the former president of the United States if I wanted to. There are people out there who may believe that. I don't know. Any person can create or edit the pages again. Anyone can also choose to edit and vandalize the site at will. And an encyclopedia should never actually be used for research purposes. While Wikipedia is a good starting point to conduct research, it is not considered a scholarly choice. For the scholarly choices, you might look at Google Scholars, scholarly articles, your local county health department, your tribal epidemiology centers. Those kind of centers are going to give you more adequate and current and accurate information. And the next slide for me, Jennifer. As you know, everyone here, the trouble with the information on the internet is it's difficult to determine whether or not it's factual. And Abraham Lincoln said that, in case you did not know. He was a smart man way before his time. I know that was a lot of information in a short PowerPoint, but I think that I was able to hit on a lot of sites and a lot of information that could help you feel a little bit more confident in choosing what to follow in regards to your healthcare on the internet. The next slide there, Jennifer's. Is there any questions that you all might have?
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rita,
Yeah.
for sharing. Would you like me to bring everybody in so we can all be on the same screen to have a conversation? Would you like that?
Sure, absolutely. And there's my
All right.
information too. And again, Hillary had said that she was going to make this PowerPoint, and I have all of the links to that information. Should you all want to access any more of that, will be available, I think, through Hillary.
Perfect. All right. So everybody, I'm going to start moving you over to panelists. So you'll probably be jumping over so you can turn on your screens, unmute yourself, and start asking your questions. Should be. Let's see.
I'm reading some of the comments in here, and Amy, I noticed you said something that I have to agree with. It says you said every headache is a brain tumor. That's how it feels like when you're researching WebMD. I think sometimes it's not going to end well.
I think a lot of stuff on the internet is subjective.
I think absolutely.
If you're more than 12 years old, you know that.
Right, absolutely.
But my dad, on the other hand, self-diagnoses himself all the time. He's 79. He believes what he reads on the internet. Well, WebMD told me, and I'm like, Dad, you got to go see a real doctor.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we just experienced currently is I had a student of mine, a swimmer, who came up to me and he was all upset about something to do with the Biden, the Hunter Biden's papers and divulging information, blah, blah, blah. And I said, he is also a student of my husband's, so he's taken the health class and knows the CRAP test. So I said, did you do a CRAP test? And he goes, yes, I did. And I go, show me the source. He says it came from, I believe, the BBC. That's what he believed. And so he pulls it up on his phone. He's looking for it, and now he can't find it. And so we think that he got clickbait. He was lured into a clickbait that it wasn't ending up to be the BBC, but somebody who was spoofing themselves to be like the BBC and revealing inaccurate information. So that was another thing that we have to watch for, is like when you click on a link, does it actually take you to the place that it says it's taking you?
Look out for bbc.com or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, keep going.
No, go ahead, Hillary. You were probably fixing to say that. I saw there was a question.
Oh, audience being funky. Yeah, go right ahead.
I thought in regards to Janice, I saw you had a question about social media posts. And for that, I'd like to kind of defer a little bit to Rashawn. Rashawn is my counterpart. She did a training over this yesterday, and she's got some really good information in regards to WebMD that she hopefully will add for us, as well as maybe she could speak a little bit on the social media posts.
Janice, are you specifically asking how do we understand if the social media posts are reliable or not?
Get their information, they copy and paste or repost information on like Facebook and other types of social media. So it seems to be very hard to tell people it's BS, when you know it is, but they truly believe it with all their might. So it's like, how do you help people do the CRAP test with social media posts?
So I like to match it with when you're seeing social media posts specifically related to health. A lot of times, especially during right now, when it comes to like COVID and the vaccine, they'll normally have the stamp on it from either the CDC or the WHO explaining like this is a legitimate post. When you know that they're like false and they're not okay, well, you can't stop it on your own, but you can also meet it with facts. So you can share data, you can share stats in the comment section, you can post clickable, how Rita was talking about, legit clickable links to respond direct, and you're not really directly responding to them in a sense where it's so combative, but more of like sharing it so everyone who comes across that comment in that section will be able to click it and see like, oh, this actually isn't true according to this resource, as long as you're posting data or facts or statistics that are from accurate sources on social media.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I missed yesterday's presentation. I was wrapped up, but this was very good. Thank you.
And maybe Jennifer can speak to the webinar. Are we going to be posting that on our YouTube page or?
Absolutely. I just need to do some editing. Haven't done that yet.
Okay. So yeah, Janice, if you want to check I can share the YouTube link to our YouTube channel for that on the RMTLC YouTube page, and maybe check sometime next week to see if it's up. That'd probably be good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
One thing I like to add. One thing I like to add that Rita and I think all of us, Jennifer and Hillary, across the map, we push like know your audience. So if you know your audience, you also know how to respond to them when it comes to social media posts, whether they're positive, misinformation, forgetting things, not stating all the facts. If you know your audience when you're addressing the response, you'll know the reaction that you'll receive.
I agree with you, Rashawn. That was absolutely true. And Amy, you added something in the comments again. You said your audio was being kind of funky, so I don't know if you can mention it again. But it is interesting. I'm the same as you. You had said that how technology was becoming prevalent in education. So Wikipedia used to be what was considered to be a trusted source, but now you're required to be a member of scholarly repositories or reports in higher education to be able to trust the information. That's pretty accurate and right on, because a lot of times people did just rely solely on Wikipedia without a second thought to anything else.
Yeah, true. I actually do have a quick question, Rita and Rashawn. I know that you talked about this during yesterday's training, but I feel like this would be a great opportunity to also share with everybody online today for this webinar is, who are some public health or tribal public health influencers people should follow to get more fact-based public health information to share with their communities online?
Rashawn, did you discuss some yesterday? I think, are we talking about like the CDC Foundation? Are you talking
like
about
off
like that,
TikTok or Instagram, like social media pages, people on Facebook? I know that you shared like really great resources, Rita, earlier in the presentation, but I just thought influencers wise, because that will definitely get a stronger demographic of youth, if you do share those type of things or look at that.
Well, absolutely. I think that I'm drawing a blank just because I know we discussed this yesterday and I apologize. But I think that there are a lot of influencers out there. Again, you just have to be mindful that the information that they are providing you is adequate as well. I know that on TikTok, there's a couple of nurses who give out information. And then somebody mentioned it in the comments that, also like on Facebook for a while, and I don't know if they still are, because I agree with you, I don't know if they still are, but used to post or flag misinformation in regards to COVID, so that people would have to go out and do their own research on that. Rashawn, what do you remember any that you had spoke about?
I didn't specifically mention any that were related to healthcare, but as far as healthcare goes, I follow, when I want to know information from an influencer, I actually follow my local healthcare practitioners that I know they put out, I always say, if you're doctor, dentist, medical cosmetologist, whomever that you go to receive checkups from, if they have a social media page, follow them, because they're going to put out accurate and correct information. You trust them enough to evaluate your body. You could trust them enough to see the tips and tricks and resources that they put out there for you.
That's great. Thank you. And another question I had that I feel like would be really good one to ask while everybody's still on this call is, we've been talking about, okay, this is how you find, this is how you figure out what's misinformation, disinformation. Here are some of the websites to stay away from. You've been sharing such great resources. But I'm starting to think like, all right, so my aunt on Facebook shared something from Fox News, and it was misinformation or fear mongering about the COVID vaccine. Or I share something that's fact-based, but my aunt or my uncle does not agree with it, and they start to kind of troll me, or I try to educate them and be like, well, actually, this is not, fact-based science, or public health information. So I guess my question is like, how do I approach trolls or people on social media who are trying to debunk actual fact-based information, and or vice versa? How am I, as a public health person, supposed to approach somebody that is very, very like boots, like very dug into the ground, so to speak, on this is true because Rush Limbaugh told me, may he rest in peace, even, you know what I mean? So
I think Rashawn touched on that earlier, and I have to agree, is to go and you find, as a healthcare professional, you're going to go and you're going to find information that you believe to be more neutral, more unbiased, and then go underneath their comment and post that link. You can't control where everyone is going to click, unfortunately. And on the website, you're going to always have, on social media, you're always going to have those naysayers, and it's going to be, fighting to keep your head above the water. If you try to go head to head with those type of people, all you can do is try to post as much accurate, unbiased information as possible and hope that they read it. That's just my suggestion. It's really hard. It's a hard conversation.
mm-hmm. Definitely. That's definitely a hard one. Has anybody else ever struggled with that here that's on the call? Because I know it's so hard to, especially, from what I've learned from the Indigenous communities I've served so far, calling out an elder or your unchi, your grandma or somebody being like, no, you're wrong for posting this on Facebook, like it's, or even just my uncles or aunts or a relative, like it's hard to have that conversation, but I feel that it's worth having that with your facts, backing you up, just as Amy put it,
I agree with what you're saying, Hillary, and it is, but you have to also look at the type of social media, and I think we discussed this a little bit yesterday, how Facebook tends to have an older audience now, but you have younger people who want a message quick and in a lot shorter period of time, a minute, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. They don't want any more than that. So you have to, again, accuracy and unbiased is going to be the hardest message to try to get across, but you have to get that across as clearly as possible, because if you want people to retain your message at a younger age, you're going to have to become a little bit more creative and, marketable, I guess, to that, so that the information gets put out there. But again, when it comes to social media, it's just a difficult, again, and Rashawn might add to this, I think it's just kind of a difficult plateau to finagle when it comes to healthcare information, I should say. Rashawn might want to add something to that.
The only thing I would add is, like how I said yesterday, when it comes to those like extreme difficulties within your community or within your family, it's easier to relate things to self. Specifically, I know we were speaking about vaccines and COVID. In my family and in my community, I have family members and cousins and people in my community that were just not fooling with the COVID vaccine. We're like, no, all these things are going to happen. And I just had to relate it to like, well, I got the vaccine, I'm getting boosted, I'm fine, nothing's happened to me, everything's okay. Or I'll look at like, your children went and got it and you're still sitting here now, we can't see you. Like, there's just different things. When you make it more relatable to the person, then it allows them to kind of take a step back. Sometimes, not all the time, but most of the time, they'll end up taking a step back and seeing the evidence of their theory in their head being debunked.
Yep, well put, Amy, about what Rashawn and Rita just shared. You know, it's right. That is an awesome approach. This did not this did not happen to me, etc. Very true. Thanks for sharing, Amy. And I don't know if I'm kind of playing devil's advocate or not, but this was a question that both myself and Jennifer were kind of talking about before the webinar started, and was like, you know, we are focusing on fact-based information, public health information, especially tribal public health information, because those are the communities we serve. But, you know, as Keith just pointed out, my mom listens to Fox News and nothing can convince her that they're wrong. You know, having those relatives that just have, like, they're stuck in the mud, like there's no way of pulling them out. But what Jennifer and I were having a discussion about, and a question that I feel like it's worth asking is, you know, why should we also be listening to the other side when they shared not fact-based public health content? Like, is there, I guess, you know, why should we be listening to the other side? Like, would that help us have this conversation? Not help us? I mean, is it wise to like check out the Fox News and be like, wow, that's what they're saying, and then be able to have a better conversation, or no? You know what I mean? Like, I hope I'm phrasing it right. And Jennifer, feel free to chime in if I totally butchered that question. But yeah.
Well, first, Rita, Rashawn, did you want to respond to Hillary's question first, and then I can add to it later on too, if you need to?
No, go ahead. I'd like to hear your addition.
Yeah, one of the things that we were talking about is that the way that the social media and any more the internet rates what information you pull. So they use algorithms to make sure that they're showing things to you that you enjoy. The more often that you look at it, the more they send you that way. But it also gives us this opportunity to be jaded, and because we're only getting information that is what we liked or what we viewed. So if we don't balance out what we're viewing, then the algorithm will only send us one side of the story. We have to look at both sides of the story, even if we don't agree with it, so that we make sure that things are balanced out. And this was in particular to a comment I heard from a young man who's transgender, and he for protection, he does not subscribe to or listen to or like anything that is against what he truly believes, who he truly is, you know, but then that means that he also is missing out on what the other side of the story and how that might hurt him in the long run. Oh, and then Keith Peck says, I point to the Bill Nye versus the creationists. Yeah, there's a very like viral video out there about him trying very hard not to use the words global warming with Fox News. And it was only the second that word kind of slipped one day that then he just gets argument. And so that's the other thing that we have to listen to or be aware of is who is speaking and how often they are listening to.
I definitely agree with that. Janice made a really good point too. I don't know, Janice, if you want to, you put in the comments, you know, that it doesn't help when you supply facts from legitimate sources, and then you have influencers out there who are saying, you know, it's not real, it's fake news per se. So that doesn't help the argument of what to believe and not to believe too.
I have a lot of people in my family that listen to the far right for sure. And it's frustrating because you know what information is factual, like don't use disinfectant to get rid of COVID or ivermectin, but then you know people that absolutely will not believe that it's bad for you and use ivermectin. And then I know people that have died because they absolutely refuse to believe that vaccine was the way to go. So it's difficult when you're dealing with, and I'm not talking about influencers on TikTok or whatever. I'm talking about our leadership. and it's hard to convince people that are really into that doctrine or indoctrinated that it's not the right information.
I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. That's good information. And Hillary, thanks for putting that Bill Nye thing in the comments too. I'm going to have to rewatch that. It's been a while.
I feel like that's the correct one. If not, Keith, let me know in the chat box, but that's what I found on YouTube real quick. So I didn't do the crap test. I just jumped into the first thing. So, bad me if I'm not practicing what I'm preaching right now, but I feel like it's right. I guess to finish off, because we have about 5 minutes, kind of bringing the conversation to an end, but focusing back on the tribal communities that we serve, is what should tribal communities be more aware of while on social media?
Can you
I just
restate that
think-
question? Oh, go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry. I was going to
No,
ask
no,
to
no.
restate the question.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Hillary.
Oh, we have written down, what should tribal communities be more aware of while on social media? Like topics or certain things in particular within public health that seems to impact their communities more than others, like to be more aware of. Jennifer helped me make the question too. Maybe she can phrase it better. But
Yeah, no, I
that's
think
what we
that,
have.
yeah, I think it really does go back to both what Rashawn and Rita said yesterday's webinar. So we'll bring it into here, and that is storytelling. You got to tell your story. And you have to be patient with folks who just don't understand because they may read something in the local news and misconstrue the efforts. So, and here's a good example. We had it was at least a year and a half ago for the Wind River Indian Reservation, we had folks who are who, when they were contracted COVID, would be placed in the Wind River Casino in hotel rooms to help separate them from their family members so that they didn't transfer that to other people. And then the Northern Arapaho Nation also then purchased a hotel in Riverton. An empty hotel, is renovating it for something similar for health reasons later on. It was a very good investment. When that got broadcast to the news, a lot of people said things like, well, this is where that disease started, was the reservation. Keep them away from Riverton. Or they were really jaded and racist and ill-informed. And then Wind River Cares did a very good job of coming back and re-educating, saying this is the purpose, this is the reason why we're doing things. And so they definitely took on the patience of telling their story as to why they're doing what they're doing for the protection of all people, not just the people who live on the reservation.
Yeah, and Rashawn just shared in the chat, just like they should be aware of how they are being represented as far as health inequities, inequalities, their communities' current states of health. Well put. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, or input they want to share before we end this webinar series today? Oh, somebody has a bird. So
I just want to say Mado and thank you for listening. And if you all have any questions or any suggestions for me, this was my first webinar, so yeah.
You did amazing.
I was a little nervous.
She did great. All right. Well, I did add in the chat box, everybody who's still here, to Better Improve Our Community Health Webinar Series Experience. Please click on the following link that I shared in the box and just share your input. It's like 6 quick questions, maybe a couple minutes max. So anytime that you can give us to help us improve the quality of the work we're doing and the topics that we're sharing with our communities is always greatly appreciated. Oh, thanks, Keith. Thank you for being part of it. It's been wonderful having so many people here and hearing stories and input. And I again want to thank 1,000 times over, Rita, for such an awesome presentation and topic. Your subject matter expertise really has helped many. Rashawn, you are just like a gold star, awesome human being that is like a well, an ongoing well of information. I don't know where the bottom is. So I'm so thrilled that we were able to connect and work together on this, and I will probably be bugging you again in the future. So thanks again, everybody. Oh, real quick, it looks like Sean had a question. As we know, health information can change rapidly as more info becomes available. How do we help people understand this?
Unfortunately, I like to go back to like the Donald Rumsfeld version of this. That is, we have our known knowns, we have our known unknowns, and then we have our unknown unknowns. And as soon as we find out what we know about the unknowns, then our information changes. I hate to like, I know, and I hate to like, quote Donald Rumsfeld from like, a war, but but of course we're human beings, and so there are things that we don't anticipate to change, and so as we learn, we share, and when we share, then that's when we're trying to be transparent and open and honest with everybody.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes in this day and age, people aren't sharing and open. So I'm so thrilled we had almost 16 people on this call today sharing. So it's wonderful that we're trying to push back against that and be open-minded and share the facts and have that empathy, understanding, but keep pushing the facts forward. So, all right. Well, it's 2:01. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you again. Major props and love to Rashawn and Rita, and also to my partner in crime, Jennifer. I couldn't do this without you. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everyone, and keep your eyes peeled for that Zoom email with resources on our evaluation if you didn't have time today to fill it out. Thank you again, and we hope to see you next month, where we're going to be talking about Indigenous research methods. So it's going to be a good one. So we hope you'll be there and help join us, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye, everyone.